I was still wired to a heart monitor when I found out they were selling my farm behind my back. The steady beep, beep, beep of that machine was supposed to be comforting. Proof I was alive, proof I'd survived the cardiac episode that had dropped me like a stone in my own kitchen 3 days earlier. But right then, lying in that sterile hospital bed with tubes snaking from my arms, that rhythmic pulse felt like a countdown timer. A countdown to the moment I'd lose everything. My own son, my own flesh and blood, sat in the uncomfortable vinyl chair beside my bed, his phone angled just slightly away. Not enough to hide it. Not from someone who'd spent 68 years reading people, reading land, reading the subtle shifts in the wind before a storm hit. I saw the email subject line. Hillcrest Farm property sale urgent. My daughter-in-law Rachel's name was in the CC field. Papers on the table. Signatures ready. Lawyers retained. All while I was still fighting to breathe, still wondering if the next beep would be my last. "Dad, you awake?" Marcus asked, finally noticing my eyes were open. He clicked his phone off too quickly, smiled that smile I'd seen him use on bad crop buyers and door-to-door salesmen. "How you feeling?" I didn't answer right away. Couldn't. My chest, the one they'd shocked back to life 48 hours ago, suddenly felt tight again, but this time it wasn't my arteries betraying me. It was my family. The farm. My farm. 347 acres of Iowa soil that my grandfather broke with a hand plow. Land that survived the Dust Bowl, the farm crisis of the 80s, droughts and floods, and every economic punch the world could throw at it. Land I'd bled into literally, still had the scar on my left hand from the thresher accident in '92. And they were selling it while I lay here with a hospital bracelet around my wrist and a nitroglycerin drip in my veins. "Where are you watching from?" I wanted to scream into the void. Tell me this doesn't happen in your family too. Tell me betrayal doesn't wear the face of your own children. But I just watched Marcus. Watched him check his phone again when he thought I'd drifted off. Because stories like this, they happen everywhere. Even in hospital rooms that smell like antiseptic and broken trust. Comment below, where are you from? Have you ever seen family turn on each other like this? I closed my eyes, and the hospital disappeared. Suddenly, I was standing in the south pasture on a June morning 23 years ago. The grass was still wet with dew, sparkling like scattered diamonds under the early sun. Margaret was laughing, God, that laugh, as she walked barefoot through the wildflowers we'd let grow along the fence line. "You know what your problem is, Thomas?" she'd said, her silver hair catching the light. "You think this farm is about crops and cattle. It's not. It's about moments." She'd been right, as always. Every fence post on that property, every gnarled oak tree along the creek, she'd touched them once. Painted the barn door that impossible shade of red because it made her think of cardinal birds. Planted the row of sunflowers that still came back every summer, stubborn as her memory. Sat on the porch swing every evening, naming constellations I could never see. That land wasn't just dirt to me. It was the last piece of her that still breathed. After the cancer took her, slowly, cruelly, over 18 months, I'd walk the property line at dawn. 5 miles exactly. Past the pond where we used to fish. Through the apple orchard she insisted on planting, even though I said the soil was wrong. She proved me wrong. Those trees still bear fruit. Along the ridge where we scattered her ashes on a day so clear you could see 3 counties. I'd talk to her out there. Tell her about the harvest. About Marcus and his college degree in business management that made him think he understood things his hands had never touched. About Rachel, the city girl who looked at 300 acres and saw nothing but dollar signs and inconvenience. But Margaret understood. The farm was our daughter, the one we'd raised when biology failed us. We'd fed it, nursed it through hard years, celebrated its abundance, mourned its losses. And now they wanted to put it on the auction block like a used tractor. The memory shifted. Darker now. Last Thanksgiving. Rachel's voice echoing through the farmhouse kitchen, not realizing I could hear every word through the old heating vents. "It's a retirement home waiting to happen, Marcus. Your dad's almost 70. What's he going to do? Farm until he drops dead in a cornfield. He loves this place, Ratch. Love doesn't pay for long-term care. Love doesn't cover medical bills. You know what this property's worth? Do you have any idea what developers would pay for land this close to the new highway expansion? Silence. The kind that meant Marcus was listening, considering. We could set him up in one of those nice assisted living places, she continued. The ones with activities and nurses on staff. He'd be safer. We'd be responsible. Responsible. That word tasted like ash. I'd sat in my recliner, the one position so I could see both the television and the window overlooking the barn, and felt something inside me go cold. Not angry. Not yet. Just cold. The way the ground freezes in November, hardening against what's coming. I should have said something then. Should have walked into that kitchen and told them both exactly what I thought of their responsible plans. But I didn't. Part of me didn't believe they'd actually do it. Part of me didn't want to believe my only son could look at everything I'd built and see nothing but a liquidation opportunity. The hospital fluorescent lights snapped me back. Cold. Sterile. Nothing like the warm honey gold of sunrise over the east field. Marcus was gone. His chair empty. Probably in the cafeteria. Or more likely in the parking lot making phone calls he didn't want me to overhear. Coordinating with Rachel. With lawyers. With real estate agents who specialized in estate sales and family transitions. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the water stains, 7 of them, like bad omens. Have you ever felt someone try to take what you built? Not just property or money, but the meaning of your life? The physical proof that you existed, that you mattered, that you left something behind besides a name in an obituary? What would you have done? Because lying there, heart medication dripping into my veins, body still weak as a newborn calf, I realized I had a choice to make. I could let them take it. Could be the reasonable father, the practical old man who goes gently into the assisted living facility with its bingo nights and pureed meals and slow, suffocating erasure of everything that made life worth living. Or I could fight. The heart monitor beeped steadily. Proof I was still alive. Proof I still had time. Drop a comment if you've ever had to fight for something you built with your own 2 hands. They came back together the next morning. Marcus and Rachel, both wearing what I called their serious faces. The ones they probably practiced in the bathroom mirror before walking into my room. Marcus carried 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee. Rachel had a leather portfolio under her arm, the expensive kind with her initials embossed in gold. The heart monitor picked up pace before I even consciously registered the danger. Beep, beep. Beep, beep. Dad, you're looking better. Marcus set the coffee on the rolling tray table, pushing aside the untouched breakfast of rubbery eggs and toast. Colors coming back. Rachel smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Never did when she looked at me. Thomas, we've been so worried. Marcus barely slept. I said nothing. Just watched them position themselves on either side of the bed like lawyers bracketing a witness. So we've been thinking, Marcus began, settling into the vinyl chair with that careful tone people use when they're about to suggest something they know you won't like. About the farm. About everything. Here it comes. You gave us a real scare, Dad. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, playing the concerned son. The doctors said it was a major cardiac event. Said you're lucky to be alive. Lucky, I repeated, my voice rough from the oxygen tube they'd only removed that morning. Yes, lucky. Rachel stepped in smoothly, opening her portfolio. And it made Marcus realize, that you need support right now. Real support. She pulled out papers. Lots of them. Clipped, tabbed, highlighted in yellow. We spoke with an elder care attorney, she continued, her voice taking on that professional pitch she probably used in her marketing job. And she helped us understand that the most loving thing we can do is make sure you're protected. Legally protected. The heart monitor's beeps quickened. Beep, beep, beep. Marcus shot a glance at the machine, then at me. Dad, you okay? Keep talking, I said. Rachel slid a document onto my tray table. The one with my congealing eggs. Official letterhead. Dense paragraphs of legal text. A signature line at the bottom with a helpful yellow arrow sticker pointing to it. Durable power of attorney for health care and financial matters. It's standard, Marcus said quickly. Just gives us the ability to help you. To make decisions when you're not able to. Medical stuff. Financial stuff. Taking care of the property while you recover. Take care of it, I said slowly. Or take care of selling it? Rachel's smile tightened. Thomas, that's not fair. We're trying to. I saw the email. I looked directly at Marcus. Yesterday. On your phone. Hillcrest Farm property sale, urgent. Want to explain that? My son had the decency to look uncomfortable. He glanced at Rachel, who didn't miss a beat. That's exactly why we need this in place, she said, tapping the paper. You're stressed. Confused. The medication can do that. We're not trying to sell anything without your knowledge. We're trying to explore options that would give you financial security. A safety net. I have a safety net. It's called 347 acres of paid-off farmland. That requires constant maintenance, Rachel countered. Property taxes. Insurance. Upkeep. You can't manage that alone anymore, Thomas. Be realistic. The heart monitor was practically screaming now. Beep, 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 beep. A nurse poked her head in. Everything all right here? Fine, I said before anyone else could answer. Just family business. She looked uncertain but retreated. Marcus picked up the paper, holding it like an offering. Dad, just sign it. It doesn't mean anything bad. It means we can take care of you. Pay your bills if you're too tired. Talk to doctors on your behalf. Make sure the farm is maintained properly. While you list it with a real estate agent. While we make informed decisions, Rachel said. Together. As a family. They thought I was too weak to read. Thought the fine print would blur in my medicated, exhausted state. Thought I'd see my son's earnest face and just surrender. They thought wrong. I'd read hundreds of contracts in my life. Grain futures. Equipment leases. Conservation easements. I knew what durable power of attorney for health care and financial matters meant. Knew that signature would give Marcus, and by extension Rachel, the legal right to access my accounts, sell my assets, make decisions about my property without my consent. It was a cage made of paperwork. I need to think about it, I said. Dad, I said I need to think about it. My voice came out harder than intended. Strong enough that Marcus actually leaned back. Rachel's professional mask slipped for just a second. I saw the flash of frustration. The calculation. She was used to closing deals, not being told to wait. Of course, she recovered smoothly. Take all the time you need. We just want what's best. They left the papers on my tray table, right next to the cold eggs and weak coffee. A not-so-subtle reminder that they'd be back. When the door closed behind them, I stared at that document for a long time. At the signature line. At the yellow arrow pointing like an accusation. My hand, still bruised from the fall, reached for the bedside table. Fumbled for my phone, the one Marcus had helpfully charged for me. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Harold Brennan, my lawyer for 32 years. The man who'd helped me structure the farm trust after Margaret died. Who knew every asset I owned, every arrangement I'd made. My thumb hovered over the call button. Beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor had settled. But my mind was racing faster than my pulse ever could. Because in that moment, staring at those papers designed to strip me of my autonomy, I remembered something. Something Rachel and Marcus had no idea about. Something I'd arranged years ago as a fail-safe, back when Margaret was sick and I'd learned that the future can ambush you when you least expect it. I called Harold. He answered on the second ring. Thomas, I heard you were in the hospital. How are you? Alive, I said. And I need you to pull some files for me. Specifically, the Castellano mortgage documents. There was a pause. Then Harold's voice came back, careful and curious. The Castellano mortgage. May I ask why? I looked at the power of attorney form. At Rachel's embossed initials on her leather portfolio, still sitting on the visitor chair. Because, I said slowly, I just discovered what I discovered when I called my lawyer. And you won't believe what that was. We'll get to that in a second. Comment power move if you saw this coming. The Castellano mortgage, Harold repeated on the other end of the line. I could hear papers rustling. Give me a moment, I'm pulling it up now. I waited. Each second felt like an hour. The hospital room suddenly felt smaller, quieter. Even the heart monitor seemed to be holding its breath. All right, I've got it, Harold said. Mortgage originated June 2020. Purchase price $340,000. Current balance. More rustling. Roughly $287,000. Payments current. No issues. Who are the borrowers, Harold? David and Patricia Castellano. Why are you? He stopped. I heard the exact moment it clicked. Wait. Patricia Castellano. Rachel's maiden name is Castellano. It is. Thomas. Harold's voice changed. Became sharper. More alert. Are you telling me you hold the mortgage on your daughter-in-law's parents' house? I'm not telling you, I said, allowing myself the smallest smile despite the oxygen tube irritating my nose. You just figured it out. Silence. Then Harold laughed, short, surprised, and impressed. You magnificent son of a bitch. Let me tell you how it happened. 5 years ago, Rachel's parents were desperate. Her father, David, had made some bad investments. Something about a business partner who disappeared with most of their retirement fund. They were facing foreclosure. 62 and 60 years old, staring down the barrel of bankruptcy and homelessness. Rachel had come to Marcus in tears. Real tears, I'll give her that. Begging him to help, to co-sign a loan, to do something. But Marcus and Rachel were newlyweds, still paying off her student loans. His credit wasn't strong enough to guarantee the amount they needed. That's when Marcus came to me. Dad, I know it's a lot to ask. I'd listened, calculated, then made a call to Harold. We'd structured it carefully. Created an LLC, Heartland Property Holdings, that I owned but wasn't publicly associated with my name. The LLC purchased the mortgage from the bank that was about to foreclose. Set up reasonable terms. 4.2% interest, 30-year amortization, monthly payments of $1,640. David and Patricia never knew who really owned their loan. The paperwork came from Heartland Property Holdings. Checks went to a P.O. box. Everything was legal, clean, and completely anonymous. I'd saved them. Saved their house, their dignity, their retirement. And Rachel never knew her inheritance. The house she'd grown up in, the equity her parents were slowly rebuilding, existed because of me. Every payment they made over 5 years came straight to me. Does Rachel know? Harold asked. No, I said. Marcus knows I helped somehow, but I never told him the details. Told him it was a private loan arrangement through a business associate. He was just grateful I'd solved the problem. And you never mentioned it. Why would I? I shifted in the hospital bed, feeling strength returning to my limbs with every word. Her parents kept their house. That was the point. Harold was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his lawyer brain was fully engaged. Thomas, you understand what this means. If they're trying to force you into signing over power of attorney, if they're planning to liquidate your assets, they'll discover the LLC, I finished. They'll discover I hold the mortgage on the Castellano house. And they'll discover, Harold continued, his voice carrying a note of something that might have been admiration, that if you wanted to, hypothetically speaking, you could call that loan. Demand immediate payment in full. Perfectly legal if the borrowers or their family members are taking adverse action against the lender. I closed my eyes. Saw Rachel's face earlier that morning. Her professional smile. Her leather portfolio. Her yellow arrow pointing at the signature line designed to steal my autonomy. Her parents' house. Probably worth $425,000 now. With a mortgage balance of $287,000. If I called that loan, demanded immediate payment, they'd have to refinance or sell. In this market, with David's credit history, they'd sell. They'd lose their home. Just like Rachel was trying to make me lose mine. The power dynamic had just flipped so completely, it was almost funny. Almost. "I'm not calling the loan," I said quietly. No. But I am going to have a conversation with my son and daughter-in-law, and I'm going to make sure they understand exactly who they're trying to corner." I could hear Harold's smile through the phone. "When do you want me there?" "Give me 2 days," I said. "Let me get out of this hospital bed. Let me get strong enough to look them in the eye. I'll prepare the documentation. Just in case." "Just in case," I agreed. After we hung up, I lay there staring at the ceiling, at those 7 water stains that looked like bad omens. Except now they looked like something else. They looked like targets. I wasn't a victim anymore. Wasn't the confused, medicated old man they thought they could manipulate with legal papers and concerned voices. I was a strategist, a chess player who'd been 3 moves ahead for 5 years without even knowing I'd need to be. Turns out, I'd been the silent owner of her parents' mortgage for 5 years. Every payment they made came straight to me. And now Rachel was about to learn something that city girls with marketing degrees and leather portfolios don't always understand. You don't corner a farmer on his own land, even if that land is technically a mortgage document in a lawyer's office. The heart monitor beeped steady, calm, controlled. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Most people never see betrayal coming. Subscribe so you don't miss stories that expose how it really unfolds. Hit that button now. You'll want to see what happens next. I signed myself out of the hospital 2 days later, against medical advice. The cardiologist, a young woman who looked barely old enough to have finished med school, stood at the foot of my bed with a clipboard and a frown. "Mr. Hendricks, I'm strongly recommending another 48 hours of observation." "Noted," I said, pulling on the shirt Marcus had brought me. "And ignored. Your heart." "My heart is fine." I looked at her directly. "What's trying to kill me isn't in my chest anymore, doctor. It's waiting for me at home." She didn't understand. How could she? But she signed the discharge papers anyway. Marcus picked me up in his Audi, the one Rachel had insisted he buy even though it made no sense for Iowa winters. He kept glancing at me during the drive, nervous. "You sure you're ready to come home, Dad? We could have set up a room at our place." Rachel even cleared out the guest room. "I'm sure. The farm's a lot to handle right now. Maybe we should talk about." "We'll talk," I said. "Soon." That seemed to relax him. He thought I was softening, becoming reasonable. I let him think it. When we pulled into the long gravel driveway, the one my grandfather had laid stone by stone in 1947, I saw Rachel's Mercedes parked near the barn. She'd made herself at home. Again, she met us at the door wearing jeans and a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than a week's worth of groceries. Concern painted on her face like stage makeup. "Thomas." "Oh, we were so worried." Come in. I made soup. She'd made soup. In my kitchen. Using Margaret's pot, the one with the dent on the side from the time my wife had dropped it running to help a calf being born in a snowstorm. "That's kind of you," I said. Over the next week, I played the part they needed me to play. The tired old man, grateful for help, slowly coming around to their way of thinking. I let Rachel fuss over my medication schedule. Let Marcus handle the farm accounts, just temporarily. Let them both believe that signing that power of attorney was inevitable, just a matter of time and the right approach. And while I played weak, they got bold. Rachel started bringing people by. "Just friends," she'd say. "Just stopping by to check on you." Except they weren't friends. They were a real estate agent named Diane Mercer, who spent 20 minutes complimenting the rustic charm, while photographing every room. A developer named Ron something who walked the property line with a surveyor's eye, talking about residential potential and subdivision opportunities. I watched from the porch swing, Margaret's swing, and said nothing. "Your son tells me you're thinking about selling," Ron said, joining me on the porch after his walk. "Smart move. Land like this close to the new development? You're sitting on a gold mine." "Am I?" "Absolutely. I'd go 3.2 million cash offer, close in 30 days. 3.2 million. For land my grandfather had bought for $8,000. That's generous, I said. Ron smiled. Thought he had me. I'll have my people draw up a preliminary offer. Just to have ready. When you're ready. Rachel appeared with iced tea. Perfect hostess. Already acting like this was her house, her land, her decision. Thank you for coming, Ron, she said warmly. Thomas needs time to rest, but we'll be in touch soon. We'll be in touch. After Ron left, she sat beside me on the swing. Set it rocking with her foot, the wrong rhythm, not the gentle sway Margaret used to make. That was good, wasn't it? She said. 3.2 million. After everything is settled, you'd have more than enough for any care facility you'd want. The really nice ones. And Marcus and I were thinking, if you sign the POA this week, we could start the process. Get everything organized before winter. You know how complicated real estate gets when snow starts falling. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the calculation behind her sympathetic smile. At the way her fingers drummed against her knee, impatient, eager. I'll think about it, I said. That night, after they'd left, Rachel blowing me a kiss from the car like we were some happy family, I called Harold. How's the performance going? He asked. Oscar-worthy, I said. She brought a developer by today. 3.2 million cash offer. Harold whistled. They're moving fast. They think they've won. I looked out the kitchen window at the barn, at the fields stretching dark under the stars. Let them think it a little longer. You're enjoying this. I'm preparing, I corrected. There's a difference. The next Friday, Rachel orchestrated her masterpiece, a family dinner. Just us, she'd said on the phone. You, me, Marcus. We should celebrate you feeling better. I'll cook. She arrived at 4 o'clock with grocery bags from Whole Foods, 45 minutes away because apparently the local Hy-Vee wasn't good enough. Took over my kitchen like an invading force. Salmon, asparagus, some kind of grain I'd never heard of. Marcus showed up at 6 with wine, expensive wine, the kind with a French name I couldn't pronounce. We ate at the dining room table. The one Margaret and I had refinished together one winter, stripping away decades of varnish to expose the oak underneath. Rachel put out placemats, candles, made it feel like a funeral dinner. And over dessert, some deconstructed apple thing that tasted nothing like pie. She made her move. Thomas, she said, reaching across to touch my hand. We wanted to talk to you about something important. Marcus shifted in his chair. Nervous but committed. The power of attorney, I said. Yes. She smiled, relieved I'd brought it up. We know it's a big step, but it's the right thing. For everyone. Ron's offer is on the table for another 2 weeks, Marcus added. But we'd need to move quickly. The paperwork alone takes time. I let the silence stretch. Watched Rachel's smile tighten at the corners. Saw Marcus's hand move to his wine glass, needing something to hold. I'll sign it, I said finally. Rachel's face lit up. Really? Monday, I said. At Harold's office. I want it done properly. Witnessed. Legal. Of course. She practically bounced in her chair. That's perfect. That's so smart, Thomas. You won't regret this. Marcus looked relieved. Guilty, but relieved. Thanks, Dad. This is the right decision. I smiled. Let them see the tired old man giving in to wisdom and age. Let them think they'd won. Because while Rachel had spent the week planning this dinner, this trap, I'd spent it planning something else entirely. I'd let her stage the whole thing. The buyers, the offers, the emotional manipulation disguised as family concern. I'd let her walk this property like she owned it, planning its dissection into subdivision lots and developer dreams. I'd let her build the gallows she'd eventually stand under. And on Monday, in Harold's office, with witnesses present and documents ready, Rachel was going to learn exactly whose ground she'd been walking on. The soft music playing from Rachel's phone, some playlist she'd made for ambience, suddenly stopped as my hand found the power button on the speaker. In the silence, I allowed myself the smallest smirk. just small enough that neither of them noticed. Some say he should have confronted her right away. Others think waiting was justice. What do you think? Drop your take in the comments. Is patience power, or should he have shut this down immediately? Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I'd been awake since 4, old farmer's habit, body clock that no hospital stay could reset. Stood on the porch watching sunrise paint the east field gold and amber. Coffee steaming in the mug Margaret had bought me 30 years ago. The one that said, "World's most stubborn man," because she'd known me better than I knew myself. Harold's office was downtown, second floor of the old Masonic building. Marcus picked me up at 9, Rachel riding shotgun, both of them wearing what I called their serious business clothes. Marcus in a suit that didn't quite fit right. Rachel in a black dress and heels, looking like she was closing a corporate merger instead of stealing her father-in-law's life's work. "You feeling okay, Dad?" Marcus asked. "We can reschedule if you're not up to it." "I'm up to it." Rachel turned in her seat, smiling. "This is really the right thing, Thomas. In a few months, you'll see how much easier everything becomes." "I'm sure I will." Harold's secretary, Donna, who'd worked for him since before I'd known him, gave me the slightest nod when we entered. She knew. Harold had told her just enough. "Mr. Brennan is ready for you," she said. "Conference room B." Harold stood when we entered, professional and polished in his navy suit. Shook everyone's hands. Made small talk about the weather, the upcoming harvest, nothing that mattered. The conference table was polished oak, real oak, not veneer, and Harold had arranged everything precisely. Yellow legal pads, pens, a pitcher of water with glasses, and 2 stacks of documents. One stack sat in front of where he'd gestured for me to sit. The other sat at the head of the table, unopened, in a manila envelope with Rachel's name written on it in Harold's precise handwriting. "So," Harold began, settling into his chair, "we're here to execute a durable power of attorney for health care and financial matters. Thomas, I've reviewed the document Marcus and Rachel provided, and I have some concerns." Rachel's smile flickered. "Concerns? Standard protocol," Harold assured her. "Anytime we're dealing with estate documents, particularly with elderly clients, we have to ensure there's no undue influence or coercion." "There's no coercion," Marcus said quickly. Dad agreed. "He wants this." "Of course." Harold turned to me. "Thomas, can you explain in your own words why you're signing this document?" I looked at my son, at his earnest face, his desperate need to believe he was doing something good. Then at Rachel, who'd straightened in her chair, predator sensing something off. "Because," I said slowly, "I want my family to be taken care of." "There you go," Rachel said. "Can we proceed?" In a moment, Harold pulled out a separate document. "First, I need Thomas to sign a statement confirming he understands what rights he's transferring. Standard procedure." "Rachel, Marcus, would you mind stepping outside for just a few minutes? Legal ethics require private counsel with the principal." Rachel's jaw tightened. "Is that really necessary?" "I'm afraid it is." 5 minutes. They left reluctantly. Rachel's heels clicked sharp and irritated against the hardwood floor. The moment the door closed, Harold's expression changed. "You ready for this?" "Been ready for 5 years. I just didn't know it. Last chance to back out. We could still sign the POA. Let this go." I thought about Margaret, about the farm, about the sunrise that morning painting everything gold. "Open the envelope, Harold." When Marcus and Rachel returned, the atmosphere had shifted. They felt it immediately, that change in air pressure before a storm hits. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked. "Have a seat," Harold said. They sat. Rachel's eyes went immediately to the manila envelope with her name on it. Her hand twitched toward it, but she didn't touch it. "Not yet." Harold steepled his fingers. "Before we proceed with the power of attorney, there are some financial matters we need to address. Specifically, regarding the property at 847 Elmwood Drive." Rachel went very still. Marcus looked confused. "Elmwood Drive? That's Rachel's parents' house." "Correct," Harold said. The house with a mortgage held by Heartland Property Holdings, LLC. I don't understand what that has to do with, Rachel started. Heartland Property Holdings, Harold continued, is a limited liability corporation wholly owned by Thomas Hendricks. The conference room went silent. Not the comfortable silence of people thinking. The shocked silence of someone realizing they've walked into a trap that's been waiting for them for 5 years. What? Rachel's voice came out barely above a whisper. I leaned forward. Let her see my face, not the tired old man from the hospital, but the farmer who'd survived droughts and recessions and predatory grain buyers. Before you sell my land, sweetheart, I said quietly, you might want to keep up with your parents' payments, because every single one has been coming to me. The color drained from Rachel's face, started at her forehead, and swept down like someone had pulled a sheet over her. Her mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. Marcus was looking between us, still not understanding. Dad, what are you talking about? 5 years ago, I said, when your in-laws were about to lose their house, I bought their mortgage. Through an LLC. Anonymously. I saved them from foreclosure. You. Rachel found her voice. My parents have been paying you. $1,640 a month, Harold supplied helpfully. Plus interest. Every payment on time. Current balance is $287,418. Rachel's hand shot to the manila envelope, ripped it open with shaking fingers. Inside were copies, mortgage documents, payment histories, LLC registration papers. Proof of everything we'd just said. Her parents' signatures. Her parents' debt. My ownership. The papers slipped from her hands, scattering across the polished oak table. She looked at Marcus desperately. Did you know about this? I knew Dad helped somehow, Marcus said slowly. He never told me the details. He said it was private. I thought it was a one-time loan or something. It was a loan, I said. With terms. Legal terms. And according to those terms, if the borrowers or their immediate family members take adverse action against the lender, such as attempting to seize the lender's assets through fraudulent means, the lender has the right to call the loan immediately. Rachel's face went from white to gray. You can't. I can. I let that sink in. I can demand immediate payment in full. $287,418. Due in 30 days. And if your parents can't refinance, and Harold tells me that with your father's credit history and their age, refinancing is unlikely, they'll have to sell. You wouldn't. But her voice had no conviction behind it. Wouldn't I? I leaned back in my chair. You were going to put me in a home. Sell my farm, my wife's farm, to developers who'd tear it apart for subdivision lots. You were going to erase everything I built. Everything Margaret and I built together. That's not. We were trying to help. Help. The word came out harder than I intended. You brought a developer to my house 4 days after I got out of the hospital. You paraded buyers around like I was already dead. You planned a dinner to trap me into signing away my rights. Marcus was staring at Rachel now, really seeing her for the first time. Rach, is that true? She didn't answer. Couldn't. The truth was written all over her face. Harold cleared his throat. There's one more thing we need to address. He pulled out another document. The power of attorney form you initially presented to Thomas. We had it examined by a forensic document specialist. Rachel's eyes went wide. The signature on the preliminary draft, the one you showed Thomas in the hospital, was forged. Someone had signed Thomas's name before he ever saw the document. What? Marcus stood up. That's insane. Who would? We have the handwriting analysis, Harold said calmly. Rachel, would you like to explain why your signature sample matches the forgery? The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Rachel's mouth worked soundlessly. Then, it was a draft. I was showing Thomas what it would look like. I didn't think. You forged my father's signature? Marcus's voice cracked. It wasn't like that. You forged it. He looked at her like he'd never seen her before. Like she was a stranger wearing his wife's face. You actually forged his signature. Marcus, we're done here. I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 68 years, but standing straight. Strong. I'm not signing anything. The farm stays mine. And Rachel, she looked at me with something like fear. You have two choices. You and Marcus leave my house, my land, and my life. Permanently. Or I call your parents' loan. Those are the only options on the table. Dad, Marcus started. Not you, I said, and I was surprised by how much it hurt to say it. You were weak, son. You let her manipulate you. But you didn't forge documents. You didn't plot and scheme. So you get a different choice. Stand with your wife, or stand with your conscience. Marcus looked at Rachel. At me. At the papers scattered across the table. Evidence of 5 years of deception he'd never known about, and 1 week of betrayal he couldn't deny. I need time, he said finally. Take all the time you need, I said. But take it somewhere else. Harold walked us to the door, just me and him, because Marcus and Rachel had left separately, Rachel's heels clicking fast and desperate down the stairs, Marcus following slowly, like a man walking to his own funeral. That was brutal, Harold said. It was necessary. What are you going to do about the mortgage? I looked out the window at Main Street. At the hardware store where I'd bought supplies for 40 years. At the diner where Margaret and I used to have coffee every Saturday morning. Nothing, I said. I'm going to do nothing. Her parents kept up their payments. They're good people who got in over their heads. I won't punish them for their daughter's sins. And Rachel gets to live knowing that the roof over her parents' heads exists because of me. That every Christmas at their house, every Sunday dinner, every family gathering happens on land that I saved. Harold smiled. That might be worse than calling the loan. I'm counting on it. I drove myself home. Past fields turning brown for winter. Past the high school where I'd graduated 50 years ago. Past the cemetery where Margaret rested under an oak tree, her headstone simple. She touched everything once, and nothing was the same. When I got to the farm, I sat in the truck for a long moment, just looking at it. The barn that needed paint. The fence that needed mending. The 347 acres that had almost been stolen, but weren't. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have seen it. I should have protected you instead of her. I texted back. Come home when you're ready. Doors always open. Because that's what fathers do. We build things. We protect them. And when our children lose their way, we leave a light on. Even when it hurts. We've all seen greed destroy families, but not like this. Tell us where you're watching from, and whether you think justice was truly served. Would you have called the mortgage? Let us know in the comments. 3 days passed. I worked the fence line on the north pasture, replacing posts that had rotted through last winter. Physical work. Good work. The kind that makes your back ache and your hands bleed and your mind go quiet. The sunset on the 3rd day was spectacular. One of those October skies that looks like God spilled paint across the horizon. Crimson and gold and purple so deep it was almost black. I sat on the porch swing, the one that still moved in Margaret's rhythm if I pushed it just right, and watched the light fade over the fields. That's when I saw the truck coming up the drive. Marcus's Audi. Moving slow. Like he wasn't sure he was welcome. He parked by the barn and sat there for a long moment. Engine off. Just sitting. Then he got out, walked toward the porch with his hands in his pockets, and his shoulders hunched like a kid who'd been caught stealing. Dad. Marcus. He climbed the porch steps. Stood there awkwardly, not sure if he was allowed to sit. Swing's got room, I said. He sat. Didn't say anything for a while. We just rocked, watching the last light drain from the sky, turning the barn into a silhouette. I filed for divorce, he said finally. I nodded. Kept rocking. She told me I was being dramatic. That you manipulated me. That the mortgage thing was entrapment. He laughed, bitter, broken. Like you forced her to forge your signature. Like you made her try to steal your farm. What did you tell her? I told her to get out. Packed her stuff myself. She's at her parents' place now. Probably telling them her version. How the mean old farmer trapped her. He looked at me. Did you trap her, Dad? No, I said. I gave her a choice 5 years ago without her knowing it. She made the wrong one. And me? Did I make the wrong choice? I thought about that. About the boy who'd helped me stack hay bales when he was barely tall enough to reach. About the teenager who'd wanted nothing more than to leave this farm and never look back. About the man who'd come home anyway, bringing a wife who saw dollar signs where I saw legacy. You made the choice you could live with, I said. That's all any of us can do. He nodded, wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand. Can I stay? Just for tonight. I can't go back to that house. Everything there smells like her perfume and lies. Your room's still there. Nothing's changed. Everything's changed. Yeah, I agreed. I guess it has. We sat there as full dark came. Stars started appearing, Orion, Cassiopeia, all the constellations Margaret used to point out. The porch light flickered on automatically, the sensor I'd installed last year kicking in. That's when we saw the headlights. Another car coming up the drive. Not slowly this time. Fast. Urgent. Harold's BMW pulled up behind Marcus's Audi, gravel spraying. He got out still wearing his suit from the office, his tie loosened, his face unreadable in the shadows. Thomas, he called. We need to talk. Now. Something in his voice made my chest tighten. Made the old fear come back. The one from the hospital, the beeping monitor, the sense that something was very wrong. What's happened? Harold climbed the porch steps, breathing hard like he'd run instead of driven. He had a manila folder clutched in his hand, his briefcase swinging from the other. I got a call from the title company, the one handling the Castellano mortgage. They were doing routine verification for a potential refinance application. Wait, I said. Rachel's parents are trying to refinance? Not them, Harold said grimly. Someone else. Someone filed paperwork claiming ownership transfer of the mortgage, claiming Heartland Property Holdings sold the note. My blood went cold. That's impossible. I never sold anything. I know. Harold opened the folder. Papers spilled out, official-looking documents with seals and signatures. But someone filed a warranty deed transfer. Someone with access to your business information. Someone who... He stopped, looked at Marcus. Marcus stood up slowly. Don't look at me like that. I didn't do anything. Your signature is on one of these documents, Harold said quietly. As a witness. What? No. I never. Marcus grabbed the papers, scanning them in the porch light. His face went pale. This looks like my signature, but I never signed this. When would I have even? The dinner, I said. The pieces clicking into place like a lock tumbling open. Rachel's dinner. She had you sign something. Said it was a card for me, remember? You told me about it. Marcus's hand started shaking. She said it was a get-well card. She put it in front of me while I was on the phone. I signed it without looking. I didn't even. It wasn't a card, Harold said. The porch light flickered. Once. Twice. Like something electrical was wrong, or like the universe itself was trying to warn us. Walter, Harold said, and his use of my first name, something he only did in the worst situations, made everything inside me go still. There's something else you need to know about that mortgage. What? He pulled out one more paper. This one older. Yellowed at the edges. A copy of something that looked like it had been buried in files for years. When I was pulling all the Castellano documents for the confrontation, I found a rider clause. Something attached to the original mortgage that I'd forgotten about. A clause that Margaret had insisted we include. Margaret. My voice came out hoarse. What are you talking about? Your wife, Harold said slowly, carefully, put a stipulation in the Heartland LLC operating agreement. A trigger clause that activates only under specific circumstances. What circumstances? Harold looked at me. At Marcus. At the darkness pressing in around the small circle of porch light. If anyone attempts to fraudulently transfer or sell the mortgage through illegal means, the full amount of the debt, plus penalties, becomes immediately due. Not from the borrowers. From whoever attempted the fraud. Rachel, Marcus whispered. But there's more, Harold continued. The clause specifies that if the fraud is perpetrated by a family member, or someone acting with a family member's knowledge, all parties involved forfeit any claim to the lender's estate. Permanently. Including inheritance rights. The swing creaked in the silence. Back and forth. Margaret's rhythm. She knew, I said. Margaret knew someone would try something like this. That's why she made you put it in. She said, Thomas trusts people too much. Someday that'll hurt him. Make sure there's protection. Harold's voice was soft with memory. I thought she was being paranoid. I was wrong. Marcus sat down hard on the porch steps. So Rachel, by trying to forge the transfer, she triggered the clause? If we can prove it was her, and given the handwriting analysis we already have from the POA forgery, we can, then yes. She owes you $287,418 plus penalties. And Marcus, Harold turned to my son. If you had knowledge of her actions, even after the fact, even if you didn't participate. I'm out, Marcus finished. The inheritance clause. I'm cut out. Unless we can prove you had no knowledge until after the fact. Which we can. But technically, the clause is active. I stood up, walked to the porch railing, looked out at the farm, at the fields that had survived everything thrown at them, at the barn that still stood after 90 years, at the legacy Margaret and I had built stone by stone, season by season. What do we do? Marcus asked, his voice small, young, like the boy who used to follow me through the corn rows, trying to match my stride. Harold and I looked at each other. In his eyes I saw the question. How far are you willing to take this? The porch light flickered again, and in that flicker, I swear I saw Margaret standing by the barn. Just for a second, smiling that smile that meant she'd been 3 steps ahead of everyone, even death. Walter, Harold said again, what do you want to do? I opened my mouth to answer. The porch light went out. Complete darkness. And in that darkness, in the moment before the backup generator kicked in, I heard something. Or maybe I imagined it. Margaret's voice, clear as the day she died. Finish it. If you're still watching and not subscribed. Why? The next chapter drops soon, and you'll want to see what he discovers. What Margaret knew. What Rachel's really done. Comment where you're watching from, so we can read your thoughts in part 2. Hit that subscribe button. You've come this far. Don't miss what happens next.